Come, let us transcend the shame spiral with 4 meditation tips. Whoops, wrong lever. This evening's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. How do you dissolve and deal with shame through meditation? I've heard metta is good. In my life, I've had issues with feeling not good enough and being less than. I'm trying to realize that I'm not my thoughts, but it's harder than I realized at first. Let's begin with some broad brushstrokes. Shame, especially long-term shame, is often one of many symptoms of trauma. If you are not currently working with a therapist who just metaphorically blows your skirt up, in my case that would be reality because I'm dressed like a Tibetan Lama, that I recommend this free resource to find someone who could really, really help you. This is not an active link. There is an active link in the description area below the video. Let's be honest. Finding a therapy, waiting for a call back, setting an appointment date, waiting for that date to arrive takes time. This is going to sound like an absurdity. Between now and then, start looking up trauma on TikTok. I shit you not. It can be a good resource. No, not every single video on TikTok is amazing, but you can find something useful while you're waiting to interface with a professional for whom shame and trauma are their primary focus. Now you might say, wait, this is the neurodivergenttherapists.org. What's up with that? Neurodivergence is an umbrella term for so many disorders that typically people with neurodivergence have been experience lifelong shame and multiple traumas. It's remarkably rare to find someone with neurodivergence who hasn't had trauma. Not that trauma causes neurodivergence, but it kind of acts like a magnet. Malignant narcissists are drawn to the disabled like cats towards catnip. And they really, really do terrible things. People who do medical gaslighting are drawn to drawn to people with neurodivergence. Just simply being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world can be traumatic. So these people are specialists in shame and trauma. And who knows, they might find patterns in your life that you were unaware of. And let's face it, if you have a neurotype that's creating behaviors that the world is making you feel ashamed of, then that shame is not based in real guilt, but in sociological problems. And just recognizing that you're not this horrible, selfish, self-centered person that you've been accused of being, but you just have a different neurotype, a different way of expressing love and respect than other people, really takes a load off. And so I'm not saying if you have shame, you are neurodivergent. I am saying if you have chronic lifelong shame, these are the people, these are the professionalists who can see patterns you can't, and who have experience dealing with shame and trauma that your run-of-the-mill therapist cannot imagine. Okay, we've beat that horse into the ground. How about number 2? I hope that's how you spell it. Lifestyle therapies. I know this is quaint, and I'm sure I'm doing a splendid job of insulting your intellect. But I shit you not, my friend, the power of getting enough sleep, getting enough fresh air, sunshine, exercise, consuming enough water, getting an abundance of whole food, plant-based dishes in your life, and in the words of Mike Myers, in my belly, it is impossible to overstate the power of these things to help us to cope with the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. And will eating a good meal undo a lifetime of trauma? No. Will getting a good night's sleep make you immune to shame? Oh, hell no. But it will help you cope. People like me who are disabled have certain phrases we use. One of them is weird. It's called spoons. And the idea is that each of us only have so many spoonfuls of energy a day. And the more disabled you are, the more spoonfuls of metaphoric spoonfuls of energy you use up just to do the bare bones basic. Make it to the bathroom, take a shower, brush your teeth, get dressed. So a normie might use an eighth of a teaspoon to do all that, whereas depending upon the severity of one's challenges, they may use 50% of their spoons just to get out the door. So the more spoons you start off with, the more spoonfuls of energy and resourcefulness we start off with, the better we will have at managing what's going on. So if you are managing shame and the causes of shame, the more the little things in your life are going your way, the better. Okay, lifestyle. Now, tip number 3. Come, let us discuss the prefrontal cortex. And to do that, I'm going to use a rather crude image. So if there's any neuroscientist watching, I apologize. I'm not a neuroscientist. I don't speak to neuroscientists. I speak to everyday people, everyday slobs, just like me, just like your mama. And so I use simple drawings. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, including meditation teachers. 90% of them will implore you to actively concentrate or actively analyze. The only way to do that is to rely upon the discrete mechanisms found in areas of our brain, such as the medial prefrontal cortex or the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Now, this prefrontal cortex is splendid. Man, if you want to compare, contrast, sort, calculate, analyze, edit, woo, this is your jam. But you're working with something that's like a Stradivarius violin. It is amazing, but it is high strung, and it's vulnerable. And the more you use it, the more you overuse it, the more you will trigger your amygdala. This weird looking spheroid type, large P right here. This thing is the seat of aggression and anxiety. And the more you rely upon active concentration and active analysis, the more you will activate your aggression and anxiety center. Therefore, focusing on love is not going to make you loving. It's going to make you cranky. Trying to analyze how these emotions of shame are just thoughts. That's trying to analyze. That's going to exhaust your prefrontal cortex. That's going to trigger your amygdala. Amygdala. We cannot believe our way out of shame, but we can use belief as a shoehorn into deeper neurosis. Belief is a rigidity, and rigidity is what you get, what you increase the more you add aggression and anxiety into the mix. So you cannot believe or analyze or concentrate your way into a resolution of shame. I know, I've tried it. It doesn't work. It didn't work for me. It doesn't work for anybody who else has tried it. And yet, and yet, people who are rigid and fearful and controlling swear by it. And these are the people who say, well, it doesn't work. But that's because we're living in the dark age. Yes, that's it. Keep trying it. And after, a couple of billion years, a couple of million lifetimes, it should work like a charm. Well, that's splendid, Chief. But when we look at the penultimate passage of the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha makes a promise that it's possible not only to practice his path, but master his path. We're talking nirvana, folks. It's possible to master the Buddha's path in less than 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. So if you've got stuff that isn't working, if you got teachers who are cranky and rigid, it's clearly not working for them. Use stuff that does work, which begs the question, what works? Well, the autonomic nervous system works Jim dandy. So let's explore how to access that bad boy right now. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired to effortlessly and automatically access our sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved to help us perceive in a very special way, not to perceive in a rigid way, but instead to perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Can you see how this is not yang, how this is not patriarchal, how this is soft, how this is yin, how this is matriarchal? This is the key. So many of the dreaded psychological states are based in physiology. And also the states that are lauded are also based in physiology. And all we need to do is learn how to cooperate with our basic wiring, and the mastery of the Buddha's path becomes effortless. So during each inhalation, we are wired to notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. We're also wired to notice emotions, dun dun dun, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. Now, is that a lot? Yes. Does it sometimes feel like nature is saying, hey, you look thirsty, why not take a sip from this fire hose? Yes, it does. Fortunately, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are already wired to effortlessly and automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, which is ensconced within the lower third as well as the upper third of that same spinal cord. What has this bad boy evolved to do? It has evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Yes, just like the pendulum of grandfather clock, we are wired to notice release in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation. Now, if you're half as smart as I hope you are, there's a part of your mind that's crossing your arms, lifting your chin, looking down your nose and saying, hey, Lama Jigme, you sadly dressed fellow. If that's the case, why aren't I peaceful? In a word, Urkel. Due to a quirk of evolution, our cerebral cortex is so jam-packed with organelles that it is forever stepping in it on its own dick, which is quite a trick. And like Urkel, who is sweet and intelligent but forever causing chaos and then asking, did I do that? That's how we stagger through life. That is how we lunge ungainly through life like Frankenstein monster after a fifth of Jack Daniels. But here is something wild. When we silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, our big old brain can't help but cooperate with our sympathetic nervous system. How cool is that? Similarly, every time we silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, this same old brain can't help but coordinate or cooperate with our parasympathetic nervous system. So just like loading apps on your smartphone, by strategically playing with these words in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation, we find that we can cope, even with something as monstrous as shame. But sometimes that's not enough. And that brings us back to, come on machine, don't fail me now. That brings us back to point 5 of our 4-point list, brisk walking meditation. In his wonderful book, in Dr. Tom Hartman, PhD's wonderful book, Walking Your Blues Away, he explores the neuropsychological benefits of brisk walking meditation. Here's the upshot. While you are briskly walking, as you breathe in, come on machine, don't fail me now. What's going on here? Something's up. Well, that's weird. Yeah, something's really weird here. Anyway, so every time you breathe in, silently, mentally, and passively recite the verb perceiving. Every time you exhale, silently, mentally, is there something going on here? Every time you exhale, silently, mentally, and passively recite the verb releasing. These are synonymous with this and ease. But when we're briskly walking, we need more than one syllable. It just works better that way. These are not affirmations. For affirmations are pretty sounding lies we tell ourselves in the name of magical thinking. No, we're simply labeling mechanisms that are already in play. Boy, there's something off here. Anyway, we're simply labeling mechanisms already in place. So, assuming you don't have a life-threatening condition in which walking is recommended, start off every 12 hours, go for a walk. Whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 40 minutes or 60 minutes, go for a brisk walk. If you're in turmoil, don't bother crossing the street. Just walk around your block. It's very difficult to get lost or hit by a car while walking around your block. What will your neighbors think of you? Well, first of all, it don't matter. Second of all, someone says anything, say, yeah, I'm just doing some walking meditation, just trying to work through some shit. Unless your neighbor's a complete psychopath, they're going to be supportive and say, well, good on you. Because let's face it, walking is not weird. And because thanks to Crocodile Dundee and thanks to, what's his face? What was that Tom Hanks movie? Life is like a box of chocolates, you know what I'm talking about. Thanks to that movie, we have the concept of people working through their shit, either taking a walkabout or running across the country. So this is not weird. A healthy person, when we are vulnerable to them, they respond back with vulnerability. If someone is a dick to you, then you know who to avoid in the future. So, brisk walking meditation while silently and mentally reciting, perceiving and releasing can help. Will it instantly rewrite your past? No. But it will help you to cope with the slings and arrows of outrageous misfortune. And I think that's all I'm going to say on the subject tonight. So I think it could be rather splendid if together you and I did a bit of chanting and a bit of meditating after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you will not have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you.